Hey, Fred here with Lead Balls 44. We're going to do a demo on how to do a reload with my friend Rob.
Hey Fred, how you doing?
Fine. What are we going to do today?
We're going to load up some 45 ACP, 230 grain, round nose,
On Hornady's.
lock and load AP with a shell feeder.
Okay.
We're going to do it in 2 passes. The first pass will size D-prime, and I like to hand prime these. Then we'll run it again to seat the bullet.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Alright, well, first thing I like to do is set the press up the way I need it. Since I'm only going to size and D-prime, I don't need a powder measure on here. I'll just set this off to the side. This is the expander, case mouth expander, don't need that. This sets the depth of the bullet, we'll use that later. And this is also for the final process. All we need is this die, and all this does is knocks out the primer and sizes the case. So we need some cases. And that's really simple. Just take a couple handfuls, throw them into the hopper, turn the hopper on. It automatically fills up the tube and stops when it's full. Just back and forth. All it's doing is taking the primer, pushing it out into a collection container, sizing the brass. These have to all be facing up. It's a primer flip tray, they call it. Does a pretty good job. They're all facing up. Slide it in here. This rod just pushes the primer up into the primer pocket. But you have to be careful not to install it with the rounded end up. Squeeze all the way. The primer gets seated flush. You don't have to worry about lock and load not pushing it in all the way. And it doesn't take much effort to seat the primer. Alright, I know somebody might be confused as to why I'm not using the automatic primer on this for 45 ACP, and that's only because I have had issues with some primers, not this brand, but the Winchester brand did not want to seat all the way down into the brass primer pocket. However, I do use this primer system when I load up 9mm, which I have no trouble loading at all, or 223. It loads both of those cartridges perfectly, and later today I'll be loading 40 caliber with the primer system. It's just 45 ACP is the only one I don't use, and it doesn't take that much longer to do the extra step. There's nothing really wrong with it, it's just my preference. But I'm not going to aim it at my face. You want to always treat this with respect and aim it away from your face and from other people. So now we can put those back into the hopper. But before we do, I always want to make sure that there's nothing inside of there. Here on the machine there's a micro switch. When it fills up, it automatically stops. So now we do not need to deprime in size. Set that off to the side. The first step is to bell the case mouth so you can install the bullet. And that's what this die does. And once they're set, they stay set. I don't have to make an adjustment. This is the powder station. This die will actually push the bullet down to the desired depth. And this is the crimp die. You bell the case. Because normally you cannot put this projectile into the case because it won't fit. So you have to expand it or bell it, and then you have to take the bell away, and that's what the die that the final station takes that bell away. So now we're going to need some powder. Then we have to validate the powder charge. For these I use long shot. When you're reloading, you always want to be safe and validate your powder charges in a good book. So now I've got to validate the powder charge with a scale. It's very important that you put the correct amount of powder in, but it's not difficult once you set it up. And even that part's not hard. So first thing, zero out your scale. Make sure there's nothing in it. And I just have marks on the table, so I put the scale in the same place every time. And the needle is zeroed. So I know that that is a safe amount of powder according to the reloading book, albeit the most powder they want you to use. So stage one just belled the case mouth. You can tell a projectile can fit inside, whereas this one that has not been belled, it won't fit in. That's all that does. It's really simple. Now added powder. Then I have to do my job, which is placing a projectile on top. And you look at it, and I did, make sure that there's powder in it. It automatically kicked it out. The case check gauge is used to make sure you have a round that'll work. It's got to be below flush here. It's got a good primer. Bullet isn't protruding out. It's not. So you have a good one. The biggest thing I focus on is to make sure the powder measure moves every time. Because if it doesn't move and I don't have powder inside, you'll have a squib load, which can ruin your day. There's nothing to it. You just pull a handle, place a projectile. The light is very handy to have too. And you can save time by doing this all in one pass. And I'm sure somebody can find the right primer that'll seat with no trouble at all. But this is just the way I like to do it with a 45. I'll do 9mm in one pass. That's a small primer, no problem. 223 in one and two passes, but for different reasons.
How long did it take you to set the light up? The little light accessory.
Maybe an hour just to run the.
That's a big difference on there. Really big difference.
Oh, I love the light.
That's the most important thing, and it's easier once it starts coming up on the upstroke to set your bullet in there. And I see what you're saying on the downstroke. You're checking to make sure that the powder's in there.
Yes.
The light's perfect. Without that light in there, it'd be a drama.
Exactly.
So you got that, and then it's nice and easy when you're halfway up. You just set your bullet in there,
Exactly.
push down. Now you just need a teenager to sit here and pull this lever for you for like 14 hours.
And now what?
I didn't see this one. We're missing one right here.
All right, so when I run into stuff like this where it gets kind of confusing, I actually start over, take everything off, and there's a little spring so you can pull it out.
Yep. That one's not seated.
Out,
Yep.
So it's not seated.
I didn't want to dump your powder charge into that empty round. See what I'm
It
saying?
actually won't.
Oh, it won't?
It won't. It's case activated.
Oh, so the
When I go to
case
push
goes up.
It does not.
Even though there was another case and you had an empty slot there, it wouldn't activate.
Right. Right.
So if you have,
I can put a case here. There's nothing in.
yeah,
I can put a case there,
right,
and nothing happens
until
All
it gets
does
to the
is
powder. Okay.
Okay.
So we start the process again. We're gonna come up, get one in there, click, and then do another one, and nothing
When
happens.
there are very few in the tube, there isn't that much weight,
So they get stick.
so they do a little bit, but not when
Right.
it's full.
Dink.
Just kinda,
Okay.
and it could just be a little bit of an adjustment. Now that is actually by design. The resistance you're feeling is by design. This is called a powder through expander. And what the idea is, after you dump your funnel with the powder inside, they want it to kind of have some resistance, and that way
So
it'll
it feels
shake any loose powder
anything
off.
that's loose when you come down. So you go,
So
okay.
That's totally normal.
There we go. And then that will be powder. Comes down. I see there's powder in it. Now we got our bullet. See our powder's in there. Get the angle better. Got it? Then it chunks up. On the way up, I set my bullet in. It seats the bullet. See the powder in there. Start to chunk up on the upstroke. I set my bullet in there. Seats the bullet. Comes down, it chunks over. I see there's powder in there. And then it rotates it right to me, and on the way up, I set my bullet in there. Seats the bullet. That one dropped out. One more step. Sealed the, and that was it. And our last step is the one that nobody can see. All it does is roll that little edge back and push your bell back in that you expanded on the first step, so the bullet will fit in there. I'd say that's it.
You found it. You can even see when
That's
you
the
look
one. It doesn't go in. When you look at it, see at this top edge, that top edge right there, see how it looks tapered out? So what we need to do is we need to put it in here, in this one,
Correct.
right? And then we need to chunk it up, build the resistance on that, and when it falls back out, we can take it in our gauge here, and it slides right in.
That's how you do it.
And that's the one where we had the malfunction in the middle that fell out. And it only takes another minute to go ahead and check the rest of these. And that's not saying to you hammer it in there with a hammer.
No.
At no time do you going to want to hit this with a hammer. Believe it or not, I've seen somebody actually bring a gun back that said they wouldn't fit, so I hammered this. Yeah, so you hammered the cylinder shut. That went well, didn't it? And this is another stage that we're doing right here that's extremely safe. You could do in the house sitting there while you're watching TV or doing whatever you're doing. Once you get a big bulk of this, you can go through and do your quality control and check all of them. Just like your priming stage that we're doing the hand primers. A lot of people I talk to sit there and load all their primers in their clean brass while they're watching TV at another location, and then you just cycled in one of your stages and you're ready. And with this economy and the price of ammo, it's worth taking the extra time, because it doesn't matter how much you make an hour, it's hard to find some of this ammo, and especially the prices on some of this ammo. When you're looking at a standard 45 ACP for $24 or $26 per 50, a lot more people are going to start doing this, and this is what you're going to start seeing is people loading their own ammo. And the good thing is you're going to get better quality, because you're going to be the one in charge of it, and you're going to be the one that can oversee how well it's getting done, and you'll eliminate some of those malfunctions. I've seen a gun that actually had a double, and what they did is something in their loading process crunched the side of it. It came out of a brand new box, and this whole brass side was crushed. If you're at your house doing this, that's never going to happen.
This is called a bulge buster kit. It's a product from Lee. Does a great job. I just put it inside, press it through. You really have to push on them.
Basically, all we're doing is shaving up on machined edge or on factory edge off of somewhere that's on here. There's a burr somewhere, and this is shaving it off.
That is correct, sir.
You're going to get a lot more common sense here than you are in school. And you can use it at school. That one is real tight. Take the cover off. We're going to pull one of these out. Perfect. Dropped in there. Right? And when I run my finger across there, I can feel where it trimmed, and there's a little really shiny spot right here. That's what it trimmed off. So there was a deformity or malfunction in the edge of the brass. I can feel a sharp edge right there on the corner. That's what it seared off, and that's what it's popping off. But all these are going to fall right in there, and there's no reason not to check these. They're all going to be fine, but there's no reason to not check them. And it all comes back to the same stuff. Common sense for life. Common sense. It's going to take another second to drop all these in here and go ahead and check them, because you could get one. It could happen, but more than likely it's not. One of these not drop in there. But they're all lined up perfect, front, back, flawless. Quarter turn, pull, dump it, and there it comes out. And this is the cog teeth he was talking about. He's changed this from the standard use so it has this cog in there, so you don't have to screw and adjust these to reset them. You slide it in, right? At any cog, it doesn't matter. You just slide it in, and then do a quarter turn and it locks. It won't come out, won't come up. It's there. And then you do a quarter turn and pull. It's those cog teeth. And then this is the last one. Boop. And like he said, we're also checking to make sure there aren't any cracks on the edge of the rounds where my thumbnail is here. We're looking to make sure there's not any visual cracks. You really can't see the ones that were trimmed, but you can feel the edge. It's a sharp edge, and all that matters is it drops directly into our gauge smoothly and is flush mount. You don't want the case sticking out, and you don't want the primer sticking out past our stainless steel check gauge in the front either. And like I said, it's one more step that only takes a few seconds to look at the edges and make sure there's no cracks, make sure there's no flaws in the side of the casing. And like I said, this can all be done. You can do 500 of these or 1,000 of them and put them in a bin, and then when you're inside sitting at the kitchen table or watching TV or listening to your old lady complain about some shit. That completes our step of making 45 ACP reloads.